Welcome to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Smith from Fuquay-Varina PD in North Carolina. He has 25 years experience in law enforcement. Really looking forward to today's conversation. So welcome, Chief Smith. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paige. Thanks for having me, and I really look forward to our conversation today.
Of course, I'm really looking forward to it too. I wanted to maybe get a little bit of background on you first. What drew you to this profession and what did the last 25 plus years look like for you?
Sure. So I'll say I'm originally from Wyoming, and about a year after high school, I wanted to be part of something bigger. And so I joined the United States Army, which ended up bringing me to North Carolina. And after I finished my first enlistment, I kind of came to that fork in the road, and I always had a passion to serve in the military, but also in law enforcement. And so as a child, I remember that I really couldn't stand seeing people victimized. It really bothered me so bad. So when I came to that fork in the road, I decided, you know what? It's time to pursue a career in law enforcement. So I took that path, and here I am today. So as you mentioned, little over 25 years in law enforcement, and I will say it's been a ride. So during this career, I've served in many different roles. Served a lot in the patrol division as supervisor, sergeant, lieutenant. Served in our special operations division, which was over investigations. Served in professional standards. Was promoted to captain, went back to the field operations division, um, and some additional duties. I was the team leader for a special response team for almost 10 years and also served on our honor guard. So, done a lot of different things, still do a lot of different things even as a chief. I try to get involved as much as I can. But yeah, it's been a great career.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask you, do you think that your why and your definition of service has evolved and changed throughout your career and the various assignments that you've had?
Um, Maybe a little bit, but there's still that one thing, and that is service, right?
Yeah.
Um, I believe that this profession is truly a calling, and I was called into this profession for a reason. And I think at its core, most law enforcement officers will tell you it is a calling, and their why pretty much stays the same. There's a reason that they came into this, and most of the time it is that service aspect. And so that never leaves. I can tell you in my career that has never left. Now, individual assignments, you might be doing some different things. Your focuses might be in maybe some different areas, but I think that why is always pretty much the same.
Yeah. One of the things that you said, you're saying like it's been a ride. And what I've heard a lot through these conversations is just like in life, there's always peaks and valleys. There's always ebbs and flows of life and career. And do you think that it's important to remember your why and to reconnect with your why during those maybe low times or those valleys in your career?
I do. I will tell you that, the old saying, time flies when you're having fun, right? When
Yeah.
everything is going great in law enforcement, time seems to fly by. Everything is wonderful, but then you're dealing with some tough situations, and it seems like there are moments where you feel like time is kind of standing still, or you hit that valley and you're just kind of like dealing with certain situations, and you're like, why am I really here?
Yeah.
And I think at those points, you have to really remember and reflect back on why you truly got into this profession. Why did you why were you called to this profession? And if you can focus on that, which I've had to do in my career, especially when times get difficult, you really remember why you're there and truly realize that you are doing great work. And that will a lot of times get you back out of those valleys, back up to your peak.
Yeah, I agree. And, I have to remind myself that everything is temporary, right? Even the good is temporary and the bad is
That's
temporary,
right.
and so I've had to do something very similar throughout my life and my career as well as say, like, sometimes you have to remind yourself that there's a deeper reason and purpose for why you're doing the things that you're doing because it's not always going to be easy. And I think that if you don't remind yourself of that deeper reason, then you don't have the motivation to keep pushing and to get on the other end of that, quote unquote storm or valley or whatever it
Yeah,
is that we want to say. But I try to remind myself of that too because things are hard sometimes, and if you don't have a deeper reason, then what is the point? So I think that it is important to remind yourself to get that motivation and be able to get to the other side.
sure. I agree with that. And another thing too is, when you take that oath, um, those are words that you have to take serious and remember. And remembering that you accepted that responsibility with those words to serve and protect the community, a lot of times can help push you through those tough times too, because, you know, we took on this role because we want to. We're here because we want to be here. And so remembering your why, remembering that oath and those words are extremely important to getting you through those difficult times.
I agree. And I actually had someone one time give a piece of advice. Maybe this is helpful too. And they said to write it down, put it somewhere, and during the hard times, go find it, refer back to it. So it's something that's always there. It's that tangible reminder of
Sure.
your why. I know that when you and I spoke offline a little bit, you had said something to me, and I was hoping that you could maybe dive into this topic a little bit more. But you said that hearing about broken marriages really just tears you apart. Can you explain a little bit about what you've seen this career do to home life and families?
Sure. We all know this is a very difficult career. And again, it's a calling, and we do this because we want to, but that doesn't mean it doesn't take a toll on the officers and also their family. And throughout my career, I've experienced and witnessed, broken marriages, broken relationships, and it really it tears me apart when I see that because I think, was it this job? Was it something else? Is there something we could have done to prevent this relationship from breaking apart?
Yeah.
And I truly can't stand to see or hear of a broken relationship. So I think it's important that we involve not only the employees of the police department, but also the families. We have to pull them in and help them with resources as well, to help prevent relationships from breaking apart. Because again, it's hard enough to come into this profession, go out there and protect and serve the community. And a lot of times we're dealing people when they're not at their best, right? And then we go home and we're expected to be uh, a good spouse, a father, an uncle, all these other roles, and you know, put it aside, put it out the door when you go home. Well, it just doesn't work that way, right? We're human beings.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think people forget that we are machines and we're not machines. And so, being able to try to put things aside to continue that home life and have that healthy home life can be very difficult at times.
Are there particular things that you are seeing that maybe officers are doing when they go home that is impacting the relationship? Like, are there typical behaviors that happen that, create that divide?
I don't know of anything in particular, but you hear about these things. It's not just in our organization, but you hear about them across the nation with relationships and stuff. I think generally speaking, what you find is the stress and the demands of this job make it difficult for someone to be at their very best um, at home
Right.
because they're dealing with a tough schedule and sleep deprivation. They're dealing with the stresses of this job, the demands, the extra hours that they have to work. I mean, we all know a 12-hour shift is not really a 12-hour shift.
Right.
An 8-hour shift is not really an 8-hour shift. So um, I would say not specifically, but in general, it's all these different aspects that impact an individual. And, you know, we're sending them out, requiring them to be the best that they can be, but we've got to get them resources to deal with these things that they deal with every day in law enforcement.
Yeah, and I appreciate some of the things that you said about also trying to loop the families in too, so that it's more of that team mentality. How can you
Sure.
support the families, but how can you also support the officers so that there's more of that cohesiveness when it comes to wellness and having effective tools to create stronger bonds within the family unit. I can only imagine how incredibly hard that is. There's always a saying of like, leave work at work and don't bring it home.
That's right.
And to your point, I don't know if that ever is possible. I think to a certain extent there's strategies that you can do, to try to leave the majority of that at work and try to be as present as possible when you're home and, try to be the best version of yourself for your family when you're home. But does it ever completely leave? Does it ever completely leave your mind? Like you said, even the shift schedule and sleep schedule, like all those things are going to impact your home life. So you can't necessarily leave everything at work. And we know that it's all interconnected. Your work life is going to impact your home life, and your home life is going to impact your work life. And so one of the things you told me is that you guys partner with an organization to help the spouses. Can you explain a little bit about what that looks like?
Sure. And this is something we're very excited about, and it's still in the works, but we're almost there.
Mhm.
And so we partnered with an organization who's going to provide several different resources for our officers. But one of the things is, you know, as the chief, I'm always thinking, I'm serving the community, but I'm serving my personnel too.
Mhm.
It's the supervisor's role to make sure that we take care of our personnel. And so kind of going back to the broken relationships that I've seen, it's like, what can we do to try to fix this and stop this from happening? And so this organization is actually going to teach some virtual sessions that will be available to the employee and the spouse that will be able to hop on together. And these topics were selected by the staff here. We did a survey on what they want to see. What topics do they want? What topics do they need? And so um, there'll be short classes, probably an hour, maybe a little bit more, but it's going to touch on things like family dynamics, marriage and law enforcement, wellness, stress. And so I think it's very important to involve the spouses because let's be honest, they bear the brunt a lot of times of this profession and they're often forgot about. And I want them to know we're not forgetting about you. We are here to support them, and that's what we're going to do. So it's something we're really excited about, and I hope we can get those scheduled very soon.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. I actually want to follow up with you at some point and hear how that
Sure.
went. Do you think that by doing that survey and asking what topics are you guys interested in learning about as a family unit, do you think that that helped to gauge, not gauge, but to encourage the buy-in and the excitement? Do you think because they said these are the things that we want, that now everyone is more on board?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's not up to me to kind of force feed, this is what I think you need. I want to know what my staff needs. What do the employees of the Fuquay-Varina Police Department need? And I think by putting that survey out saying, look, here are the 8 to 10 topics that can be taught by this organization. What do you want? And it gets them involved in that process, right? And so they're communicating, hey, based on what I might be experiencing, this is what me and my family need. And so 100%, I think the staff is really excited about this. And so um, we won't know until the first virtual class kicks off on how many people will attend. But you know what? We're going to make it happen. Whether, 10 employees show up, uh, for that class, or all 78, or officers, or all 10 civilian staff show up. So it will be there for them. So yeah, I think that helped with buy-in. Getting them involved is important.
Yeah. And obviously, I know you have a completely different role than I do coming in as an outsider, but that's something I've had to learn as well is like, I I don't think it's effective to stand in front of people and say, you should do this because I find this to be important. And I've had to learn that throughout my life, that
Right.
doesn't work, at least in the context of my position. And I've had to learn that maybe the hard way a couple times. But I find it to be far more effective if people are connecting to why things are important for them. And I think if we're going to have conversations about wellness not being a one size fits all, that has to be the approach of like what is important to you and what are the things that you need as an individual, recognizing that not every person's going to be the same. And in the context of family wellness, to your point, maybe not every single family is experiencing the same things. Maybe there's some people who are experiencing X and some people are experiencing Y. And so I really like that approach of asking, what is important to you? What are the things that you need so that people feel seen and valued as individuals within the organization and they don't feel maybe like a checkbox, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, I agree. I agree with what you said, that one resource might not be what somebody else needs. And so, we all deal with things differently.
Mhm.
We all need things that could be different. So what we're trying to do is find those commonalities and what the employees here need.
Yeah.
And that's what we will bring to them to try to help
Yeah.
anywhere we can. I mean, we are a team here, and we are 100% committed to officer wellness and making sure that our staff gets the resources they need. So it's been exciting, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know when you and I talked offline, I could tell that. Like I think you had said like we're excited a few times when we were on the phone. And so I was
Yeah.
really looking forward to this conversation because I can tell that you're, amped up about it. Um,
Yes.
can you maybe explain some of the other things that are in the works that you guys either have done that have been successful or maybe some things that you are planning for that you're really excited about?
Sure. So a lot of the stuff that we have is new or in the works, and that's why we're so excited about this is, you know, coming together as a team saying, look, we're going to prioritize wellness. When I took over as the chief in August of last year, one of my priorities was officer wellness. And so having those conversations with my team, everybody was motivated about this, and they're like, you know what? We're on board and we're all going to make this happen. So we've got the organization that I mentioned, partnering with the virtual classes. They will also help with critical incident stress management. So if we need them to come out after a critical incident, they will be here to support staff. We also have them on staff for therapy services if the officers need that. We have a new gym here at the police department that everybody's excited about. So they're out there using that. Everybody was looking forward to that. And so that was very exciting. Um, we've got a partnering right now actually with a nutritionist who is working on developing a program specifically for our agency. And again, a survey was put out. What do you need? What are some of the things you struggle with nutrition? So working with her to do some in-person and virtual classes. We're working with a physical therapist who is going to come in August and do a lower back clinic and a hip mobility clinic to help reduce back pain. We all know that this gear gets heavy at times. So reducing back pain, preventing back pain. So really excited about that. And also, I don't want to forget that we have a chaplain program. And our chaplain he's amazing. He is a former officer of this agency. And so, having him here and checking on the staff periodically, they have someone that they can talk to and reach out to. And he's been there, so he gets it. And so having a strong chaplain program in place that we have is definitely very beneficial. So as you see, we got a lot of things in the works. We're excited about all this, and we're not going to stop there. We're going to continue to think as a team. What are some of the other things we can do to bring wellness to this agency? And we'll see what happens.
I love it. I wanted you to maybe just put one more little point on the gym because you told me this
Sure.
before. How did you create that gym and how did you find the space for it?
So we actually had support from management who was putting a storage building in the back. And we were able to fit that gym within that storage building and get the support of them to get the equipment and get it put in there and get it up and running. So that was something that the staff had been wanting for a really long time. I mean, we all know that physical wellness is extremely important, and then the demands of this job require us to be, physically fit. I tell people, new people when they come to this profession, the day you swear in, you lose the right to be unfit.
Mm.
And so you've got to take care of yourself physically and mentally. So we were able to make it happen. Thanks again to the support of the management team, and they're using it. So it's very exciting.
I really appreciated that you said you have to be fit, but you said physically and mentally. Because I think a lot
Yes.
of people wouldn't put the mental part on there. You would only think like for the demands of the job, you need to be physically fit. But I really appreciated that you said, no, you need to be physically and mentally fit to be able to perform the functions of this career. And I was hoping that maybe you could give a little bit of advice. I mean, I talk to agencies all across the country, and there are a lot of agencies that are in infancy stages and just starting out. And there are some question marks of like, how do we even start? And I know that you guys are just now getting things kind of off the ground and you're really excited, but you already have so many things that are building momentum. Do you have advice for anyone who is just starting out and how they get started?
I think partnerships are huge. Partnerships in your community. And so anytime I get a chance to publicly speak, I like to talk about recruiting. I always use it as a recruiting opportunity and also talk about officer wellness because what I found is we have really great community support here. And there are people who want to contribute to the police department and offer services. And so I would say reach out to your community partners because I can guarantee there are people in the community that will want to support your wellness and offer their services. So that's kind of what we did. And then it was a snowball effect, right? It started small and then it just started gaining momentum to where the next thing you know, we had all these partners and these people reaching out saying, "Hey, you spoke about your officer wellness at this luncheon. I am all in. Hit me up. I'd like to have a conversation and see what we can get started." So mental wellness is definitely key. We're placing officers out there on the street to make good decisions,
Mhm.
and they can't do that if they're not mentally fit. And so you've got to focus on the mental aspect just as much as the physical aspect. So I would say, get creative, reach out to, your community, to form those partnerships. And what you'll find is there's going to be people in the community that will support your efforts and offer their services.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that that's really helpful because I think sometimes when you don't know where to start, it feels so overwhelming. It's almost this like paralysis of like, what do I do? So I really appreciate that
Right.
advice and getting community support. And I know when we talked, you said a lot of these people are volunteering and offering these things at no cost because they want to be a part of helping you guys and be a part of something great. And so I think that that's an important reminder too. I think sometimes a lot of agencies get so caught up in the funding of things. And of course, there are some things that cost money. But I think that there are other ways that you can get creative that you can, introduce certain elements of wellness at no cost.
Yeah. No, I think funding is always a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, Law enforcement is expensive, um, and so one of the things you have to do is just get creative and prioritize. So if you have a certain amount of funding, you know, what can you get from the community, to get those services donated to you free versus what do you need to pay for?
Mhm.
And just kind of prioritizing those things. Also researching grants too. There are a lot of grants out there that uh, will support officer wellness programs. And so sometimes you have to get creative and you don't want funding to be an issue, but the reality is sometimes it is.
Right.
And I will say we're very fortunate here, um, though, again, the support of management that um, we don't really have that issue right now with funding, but there may be a time that it's more of a challenge and we have to prioritize and put that funding we may have set aside for officer wellness towards something else. So yeah, we're very lucky and to get a lot of these services donated, but people want to be involved, they want to help their police departments.
Yeah. I know when you said that mental wellness is really important, and one of the conversations I've had a lot recently has been surrounding burnout. And I was hoping that maybe you could give a little bit of insight into what you've seen as far as maybe the time frame that people are starting to feel a little bit burnt out and some of the things that you can do to get in front of that so that you have more of that longevity and that positive mental attitude to get you through a 25 plus year career.
Sure. I've experienced burnout in my career. I think everybody does. I know in North Carolina, it's a 30-year career.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is pace yourself, right? Don't start out of the gate sprinting because you will experience burnout a little bit faster. And so pace yourself. This is a long career and you're going to hit those valleys like we spoke about, earlier. And I think the most important thing again is when you experience that burnout, you've got to remember why, again, why you got into this career. I wouldn't necessarily put a time frame on when that happens. I've seen it, happen uh, at different stages throughout people's career. I know me, it was probably around the uh, 10, 12 year mark, when you've been in it for a while, you're now starting to really feel the effects of the job. Um, you've dealt with a lot over that time span. And so you're just kind of like, man, I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
And I've had people communicate that to me too. And I tell them, look, you've got to push through. You have to remember why you're here and take advantages of any resources that we have. Talk to people. You'll get through it. Everybody gets through it. But you just have to continuously push through. So I think for everybody, it might be a little bit different. And so based on how much weight kind of is on their shoulders and what they've been exposed to. So um, the important part is just to continue pushing forward so you can get out of that valley and hit that peak again.
I like the reminder of, utilize the resources. They're there for a reason, and
Sure.
that's the point, right? Like you want to have resources in place that are being utilized and that people feel safe and comfortable and excited to grab a hold of. And especially in the times of need, of course we want to be proactive and get in front of some of those things to try to soften, some of the things that you might go through. But I think that, especially in a reactive way, if you're already at that point of burnout, if you're already at a point where you feel like things are starting to fall apart a little bit, how can you, as an organization, make sure that everyone knows that these resources are available? And then as an
Mhm.
individual, how can you know like, hey, I need to take care of myself and I need to take advantage of these things. So I appreciate that reminder of like, hey, like use the resources. They're there for a reason. And I know that wellness is something that's important to you. And one of the things that you were talking about was trying to create an environment within the organization where people want to be there. You know, people are excited to be there and they have this mental attitude of, I get to do this and not I have to do this. What are some of the things that maybe you guys are doing, internally to create that environment where people are excited to come to work?
Yeah, I think culture is huge,
Mhm.
right? If you don't have a good, positive culture eh, at your agency, you're failing because who wants to come to work in that, right? The last thing you want is an officer putting on their uniform saying, man, I have to go to work. Like they're miserable. They don't want to be there. And so as leaders, we really have to look at the culture that we have created
Yeah.
and what is happening around us. So ensuring that we have that here we like to have that family environment. Everybody knows that you're supported. Of course, we're still going to hold people accountable to make sure they're doing the right things, but that family environment, look, we support you. We're here for you. We're bringing these resources to you if you need them. We're not wanting you to go out and find the resources on your own because let's be honest, when that happens, a lot of times people are not going to go out and seek those resources. We want to put those resources in front of people so
Mhm.
they take advantage of them. But I think having a culture where people know that they're valued, they're appreciated, they're supported, all those things are very important. One thing that I believe in and that I like to do is get employees involved, right? They have a voice. And so I believe in committees. We have formed committees for various different things. And what that does is it gets the employees involved. They're making decisions. They know that um, they have a say in things. And I'll share one with you that really has been successful. So we all know that communication, right, or a lack thereof can cause issues
Yeah.
when there's a breakdown in communication. So I'm driving around one day and my mind's always thinking of things that we can do. And so I was just focused on communication one day and I said, you know what? I think a monthly newsletter to enhance communication would be a great thing. So I put it out there. Who wants to be part of this committee, this newsletter committee, to where you guys will be completely responsible for developing this newsletter on a monthly basis and putting out pertinent information? And man, the feedback I got from that was fantastic. And this group has really taken off with this newsletter, right? Badge and banter is what they call it. And it has been fantastic. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on in that newsletter was listing our officer wellness resources. So
Mhm.
there is a section on there that the employees they can see it, right? And it's a reminder, look, if you need something, here are those law enforcement or officer wellness resources. So I think that just kind of goes to the culture of a positive environment and get people involved, family atmosphere, and give people a voice.
I really like the name Badge and Banter. I think that that's really clever. But I think the one thing I wrote down was you're empowering people. And when people feel empowered and they feel valued and they feel heard and they feel like they're an integral part of that team, then I think that is where you're getting that buy-in and that excitement, right? Because people feel like they matter and that their voice matters and is heard. And so I like that you're focusing on that. And I will say, I had someone recently ask me a question on the podcast, and I always get so nervous when people ask me questions because it's like, a frame shift. I'm like, but they had asked me, like, what is the one thing that you're hearing is like the key to wellness in, all the conversations that I've had on this podcast. And without a doubt, culture is the number one thing that everyone says is that foundation that you have to have that woven into the fabric of the organization for you to have any sort of successful programming. If you don't have, a strong foundation, then the programming is never going to be successful because people aren't going to feel safe or feel,
Right.
um, like they want to take advantage of those things if there isn't that culture first.
Sure. And people feel valued. When they feel valued, they work harder for you. And so, a happy employee is a productive employee. And so, and that's what we want is just to have a great culture here. And we've done that. We've been very successful with that so far.
That's awesome. I have one final question for you, and then I'll let you have the floor if we missed anything.
Okay.
What words of wisdom would you share with someone who's earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier that would have helped you out, or something that you learned along the way that was really integral and productive for you.
Sure. Um, I think, I had mentioned it a little bit earlier was kind of pace yourself.
Mhm.
When you get into this career, you're excited. You want to do as much as you can, and that's great. And so while you want to learn as much as you can and never stop learning, right? Pace yourself because this is a long career, but take advantage of any opportunity that you can, especially for professional development and growth. Um, Experience is the best teacher.
Mm.
And so, relying on those experiences to help you get through situations later on in your career, those are huge. And those can be passed along to, other officers when you become a training officer or a supervisor. And I will say, too, protect the integrity, right? Protect your integrity. And this badge is built on trust. And so don't do anything to jeopardize that. Remember those words that you recite when you take your oath, because those words are very meaningful, and it becomes a way of life, essentially. So take care of yourself, right? Make sure you take time to take care of yourself, and don't be ashamed to reach out and use those resources, you know, and deal with anything that you might be dealing with, eh, because you're not alone.
Mm.
And I would say the last thing is, take time for family. Family is extremely important, and this job is eventually going to come and go, but your family is going to be there forever. And so take time to attend your children's school functions, to date your spouse, you know, get away from this job, for a little bit so you can, you know, clear your mind, get refreshed. So when you come back to work, you can operate at 100%. So I think doing those things are very key. And those are the things that I really try to push to the new officers when they get hired is, focus on these things, but really kind of pace yourself throughout this career.
Thank you. I
Sure.
appreciate that. I wrote it down. I loved that statement, experience is the best teacher. I thought that was great. I've never heard that before. I don't know if that's something that everyone has heard before, but that was new to me. So I appreciate your time so much and your words
Yeah,
of
thank you.
wisdom. If there's anything I miss, any final closing remarks that you want to add, you have the floor.
I don't think so. I really appreciate the work that you're doing,
Thank you.
and doing these podcasts because I think awareness is key. And, this is an important topic. So thank you for what you do. We are excited here at the Fuquay-Varina Police Department to see kind of what develops with this officer wellness, and we'll definitely follow up and let you know how things are going. So thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate your time so much, and we'll definitely keep in touch. And maybe we'll have to do a part two once you get everything up and running to see,
That
how
sounds good.
things are going. So thank you,
Definitely. Yep. Thank you so much.
of course.